they know something I do not know about running a startup, right? And it just, I don't know what happened, but I had to find the solution. I had to find the answer.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we will be discussing the struggles and lessons learned along the journey of a seven-figure business owner. It's my privilege to welcome our guest today, Albert, with Bitcoin Startup Lab. Albert, welcome to the call.
Thanks, John, for having me.
You bet. Albert, let's go ahead and dive right in without further ado. As a small business owner and as an entrepreneur, please share with us your story. Where did you start from? Where have you gotten to? And maybe share a few key lessons learned along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my journey started in San Francisco, where I was born, and my family moved down to Southern California, where I grew up, until adulthood. And I remember during my teenage years, I would be jumping from side business to side business. At the time, it was like my mode of transportation was a bike, so I was limited by doing business within our neighborhood. Door to door sales, like newspaper routes. Want to make more money, so went door to door offering car washes and then mowing lawns and all that stuff, selling chocolate bars,
There
right?
you go.
Trading baseball cards. All the probably like very not too like dissimilar with other like I guess budding entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
Yeah, but back then, but school is still first place, right? And so
Right.
it is that this part of my journey was actually pretty interesting because I remember when I was like 11, 12, when I first made my first dollar, being entrepreneurial. Um, I just didn't think about it. I just like I want to make some more money so I could keep up with my friends. So when we go to the arcade, we could play video games. Like they
Right.
got very nice allowances. Being from Orange County, Huntington Beach, I got almost zero allowance. So I had to figure out how to make that money so I could hang out with them. Right. So back then it was just I wouldn't think about it. It's just like very singular. And then somewhere along the way, maybe around I would say first couple of years of university, maybe when I was 18, 19, 20, I sort of lost my way being an entrepreneur. I started caring what other people thought. I started like letting the fear get the better of me. I was second guess, and it was, and then I had my stint. I had a lot of internships during university at big companies and also at startups. I was also, I was sort of blessed in math. So by the time I was 19, late teenager, I was teaching PhD students calculus. That made some money.
Right.
But but yeah, long story short, I think this is worth mentioning. I got really good grades. Like they were so good that I could study once and I would ace, for example, 8 comp sci classes. Wasn't even my major, you know, and that gave me a really big head, And I
Right.
started like thinking like, hey, if I can do well at this or other subjects, I could do well anything else, right? And so I went to Silicon Valley in the year 2000. I thought I was going to get rich because some of my friends, a few years older than me, they had experienced the dot-com boom and they got rich. Um, I hit it right at the tail end, right before the dot-com crash.
Oh no.
Yeah, that took me down a few notches. Still like pretty young and big headed. Long story short, I was working as a software engineer at the time at a startup, and their VC funding got pulled. We all lost our jobs and moved to China in 2001,
Right.
like
Okay.
shortly after 9/11. I remember it clearly because I think I got on a plane 1 month after 9/11, and there's maybe like 5 people on the plane. Like every 5 or 6 rows, there's one person.
Right.
you know, and I fell in love with China at the time. It was just an amazing place. It was ironically speaking, it was actually more free than the U.S. back then. You know, and then tried many different types of businesses and fell flat on my face the first three. Right, so it was success in school does not translate into success in a startup at all.
Okay.
At all. But I think it was a good life experience because it took me down a few notches,
Yeah.
um, and I just got more grounded, right? And after a while, got lucky. I say I got lucky because Got lucky with one project, made some money. It wasn't a lot. I was a small shareholder, but it was a handsome amount. But then when I tried to do my next, entrepreneurial project, I lost it all. Right. So that's what I mean by I said I got lucky. Right. Because I didn't. It wasn't repeatable. It wasn't repeatable. Right. And then so around 2014, I had this vision to help people from the ideation to investment ready phase, right? Because that was the part where I tripped over the most, right?
Right.
So my success was inconsistent, but then I had other friends who seemed to like hit it out of the park like consecutively one after another, right? So that made me super aware that they know something I do not know
Ah,
about running a startup, right? And it just I don't know what happened, but I had to find the solution. I had to find the answer, right? So I started researching lean startup, different types of 0 to 1 programs, etc. Right? A lot of different variations, right? I mean, if you look at like for example MIT's 0 to 1 process, is much more involved and much more detailed. They have a lot of hardware coming out. You can make less
right.
mistakes because the upfront investment is higher. But if you look at Silicon Valley, they tend to favor more like software startups. So the like the startup methodology is more lean, right? So it's really interesting. But if you overlap all of them, you find that, or if you stack them on top of each other, like from ideation to investment ready, you'll begin to see certain parts that are immutable, right? For example, look, you have to make more money than your operating costs if you want to break a profit, right? You have to have
Right.
customers, you have to have an innovative product, right? There's certain things that are immutable. So in the beginning it was very like blurry, right? Because I was not completely confident. It was like sort of like I didn't make it work repeatedly, so I felt that can I really start this business helping people turn an idea into investment ready startup, right? And so in the beginning it was just like one on one. It was disastrous. About a year and a half, I started noticing the pattern. I had to repeat everything. Right? Like 95, 99% of it was repeated. So eventually, the light bulb went off for let's turn this into a cohort. Let's turn this into a cohort like style. So instead of saying it like once or 20 times, uh, like individually to 20 different people, we just said, all right, 20 people in a group, like a batch. Just say it once, right? And then that was a trick. That was a trick because we saved time on on sharing the like the immutable steps of the startup. And a lot of times we found that they may not be very receptive when we share the information with them, right?
Right.
But then when we have a group discussion and they see someone else making the same mistake, the light bulb goes off from them like, oh, I'm making that mistake. Right?
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, it was. And so it was actually less work too, because now they were becoming aware faster of what they had to level up on, right? So that was pretty. That was like an eye opener for us. So eventually, we did 21 cohorts in China. It became the longest running pre-accelerator. So again, like when I say pre-accelerator, I mean they're at the exploration stage. That's a nice way of saying they're at the bad idea stage. They usually have to pivot almost 5 times on average, around 5 times before they land an idea that is actually like scientifically proven can become a startup, right? So we did that for 21 cohorts. It was a huge social experiment for us. We weren't focused back then. It wasn't called the Bitcoin Startup Lab, right? We're agnostic. We had AI companies, drone companies, beachwear companies, of course, a lot of SaaS companies, software companies, right? But all across the board, Web two, a couple of Web three, right? Um, and I think another thing we did that was really different from everyone else was we kept it roughly 50-50 male female, right?
Oh,
We wanted to see if there are any if there are any patterns between genders.
yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into that because I don't know like how much I could say without uh, not being politically correct anymore.
Gotcha.
but yeah, it was over 200 teams that we trained over 21 cohorts. So these are like really like tight knit cohorts, right? And just to put that into perspective, what does 21 cohorts even mean? Is that a lot? Is that a little? Right? Well, second place they were able to do 2 cohorts.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, second place. Most people, I would hear maybe a new outfit or new team wanting to do something from, bad idea to investment ready, maybe once a month. And so if I hear it once a month, if you multiply it over, however many cities or whatever there are in
Right.
China, it's probably a lot more. So it's a tough business, right? It's a really tough business because we're getting in usually 6 months to 12 months before an accelerator,
Right.
right? So we have to be much more careful with our cash flow, right? We also have to be more better at selecting who we spend our time with, right?
Right.
Because if another 6 months to a year, that's another 6 months to a year. People could drop off from the start of the game,
Right.
right? So, and that can really hurt. That can really hurt. Yeah, but long story short, I mean, some things happen. Like, well, in summary, socialism happened in China, and
Right.
it stifled a lot of innovation. So the light bulb went off for us, and we said, this is why we need um, to focus on freedom enabling technologies. Freedom enabling technologies. And Bitcoin to us represents a freedom, financial freedom, right? We believe it's a primitive that we can use to create a alternative or parallel financial ecosystem that's decentralized, that is self sovereign, that can't be taken away based on a policy or whatever because the government or some other central force decided um, what's best for us, right? And
Right.
yeah, that's why in 2022 on the 22nd cohort, which was our first Bitcoin alt Bitcoin cohort, we did a hard pivot. No more of this like social experimentation, no more being like complete agnostic by industry, right? We just said, all right, we're going to focus on Bitcoin first, right? But it doesn't stop at Bitcoin. We also believe that if we want to enhance our freedoms or at least preserve it, we have to have a mixture, just like decentralized finance and centralized. We have a mixture of that. I'm
Yeah.
not a proponent for if we too far either way. I don't think that's the solution. There's got to be some kind of harmony with those two, right? Just
Like
like with Bitcoin and centralized finances, I believe decentralized AI and AI, we have to find the healthy mix because we can imagine what happens if it's all centralized AI.
yep.
That's more or less the beginning of the Terminator movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would lose all our freedoms. But so and metaverse technologies. So for us, it's Bitcoin, decentralized AI, and metaverse. When I say metaverse, I mean the free metaverse, right? That
Right.
allows the freedom to explore who we want to be in a digital world. Yeah, I'll pause there for a second.
Sounds good. So at that point, is that when you decided to move back to the States from China, or were you
It
still
was, yeah. That. Thank you for asking that, John. So in early 2022, we still did 3 cohorts in China until we couldn't anymore. As you probably know, that was when Shanghai did citywide lockdowns, right,
right?
for a few months, and so that basically was a great ending for our 21st cohort that we did all online in China. But it also gave us it was a catalyst. Like one door closes, another one opens for opportunity, right?
Right.
And it gave us the time we needed to recruit our first all Bitcoin cohort. There's 25 teams or individuals in the first one, right? We did all online. In order to get that kick started, I was waking up at 6 p.m. at night so I could service the U.S. time, and then I would go to sleep maybe like 11 a.m. the next day. So my
Jeez.
night and day was reversed
Right.
until I couldn't take it anymore, And then so on December 7th that year, 2022, I moved back to California, where I
Gotcha.
originally from.
Fantastic. And at what point along the stage of this growth did you start bringing on your next team members?
That's a really good question. I, we, although we help very sexy projects, we are not a sexy project. Okay,
Right.
what do I mean by that? I mean that education is not sexy. Like community building is tough work, right? And it takes time. It's a lot of pain.
Right.
More pain than like say the average startup. Okay, and things tend to be a little slower, right? The iteration cycle, for example, a 3-month program, it takes us 3 to 4 months to put together a core, and then 3 months to train people,
Right.
right? Versus, you know, a lot of startups, you can have an iteration cycle, 1 week, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's really
Yes.
snappy. It's sexy, right?
Yeah.
Things are leveling up. Your traction obviously looks a lot better, right? If you just look at absolute numbers. So HR, like staffing, was always a problem. I tried very hard to find a co-founder, but in the end, we just had to launch it, right? And we're lucky to have assembled like the A team in China. There's actually only 3 people at any given one time, like full time. But we found the right 3 people in China, me being one of them, right? So there's 3 total.
Right.
And in 14 months, we're able to launch 12 cohorts.
Nice.
So recruiting, training, everything. And yeah, and I know you're doing the math right now in your head. Yes, it is overlapped. There's not overlap. It was
Yeah.
like people thought we were insane because, our closest cousin is maybe the accelerator. They're downstream from us. They usually run 2 to 3 a year. 3 is already a lot. 2 is, already you're already great team if you could do 2. So we did 12 and 14 months, right? But then going back to the point about staffing, that was all in Chinese. That was all in Chinese. And when we did Bitcoin, we went international. So we went, well, to be accurate, the first one was all English, for me to get warmed up with the Chinese. But from the second one and on, it became like the second one was like half Chinese, half English until it was all Chinese,
Gotcha.
focusing on the Chinese market. 22nd core, which in 2022 when we started our first Bitcoin core, it went all English. So then my team was not able to help me. Yeah, my team wasn't able to help me. So, but luckily I had one other friend. He was a successful entrepreneur, and his business was sort of like in a steady state, and he was able to come help me, even though like completely unrelated. He was he's a crypto investor, so he was interested. He helped me
Gotcha.
for a couple hours a week, but aside from that, I pretty much had to do everything else. Right? But because we had done so many cohorts before, so like a lot of things that maybe seemed like a big lift was manageable, right? So it was like
Right.
I would say 1.5 people to start the first all Bitcoin cohort, right? And then again, try to recruit him as a founder, try to convince him, hey, look, forget about that business, sell it,
Come
help
do
me
this.
do this. Bitcoin's the future. This is the future. No, like it's hard to unplug, right? Because you
Yeah.
sort of like start you build affinity to what you do if you do it for a long time. So
Yeah.
that didn't
No,
work out.
absolutely.
And tried again to find co-founders, right, for this new chapter, but couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. And a lot of startup books will say, hey, you should always go for like the all-star team, which I tried, and we also help people do that in our program. Co-founder matching is a very large component of what we do. Right?
Right.
We sign contracts with individuals, not with startups. They don't even have business entities. And then over 50% of the teams are able to graduate and raise funding after our program or get into accelerator. They find a co-founder that they stay a long time with through our program that they haven't
Awesome.
met before. Yeah, so it's a very high hit rate. But even though we going back to your question again about finding people, even though this is the playbook, right? Find the best team if you want to go the distance, right? That's the playbook for, and they should like have a big asterisk there, like you will only be able to pull this off if you have a sexy project.
There you go.
You only be able to pull this off if you have a sexy project. If your project is not sexy, right, is not in vogue, guess what? You have to find the people that basically the universe or that he acts at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
You don't find the perfect person, but you find the person that could fit the role at that time, right? And you hope you could train them to become maybe a partner in the future.
Yeah.
But if it's not a sexy project, the reality is that most likely once they get some experience, they'll probably want to go to a more sexy project.
Right.
It's sort of like dating, right? Like you like looking for like the strongest mate, right? So yeah,
Great. So today,
it's a struggle.
it's,
It's been a struggle. Yeah.
yeah. So today it's you. You're in the U.S. Are your other two people still in China, or do they
Oh
come back
no,
here?
those other two people are no longer with us, or they're no longer working with us. I would say, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
No,
Okay.
well, one of them became my wife actually.
Oh,
One of them became my wife,
okay.
so she's actually my advisor now.
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. She helped me evolve the system. Yeah, so she's involved but not full time. We have like about 6 other people, and they're all in the U.S. or in Canada right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, sounds good. Awesome. Well, Albert, thank you so much for sharing your story. That's fantastic. I love your intentionality around saying, "Hey, I I didn't like the way that things were working for me. There's got to be a better way to do this." And so you said, "Okay, I'm gonna here's a problem. I'm gonna create a solution." And so now you have this intentionality around. I was struggling. I don't want others to have to do that. I'm going to find a solution that I'm going to go and I'm going to help them through this process. Fantastic. Love
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. No,
So,
that's basically what happened. Yeah, that's a great summary.
yeah, yeah, no, love that. It's fantastic. So, as it pertains to you, continuing to become the leader that you want within your team and building your team, what's something that you're dealing with real time right now that we can have a conversation about?
Uh, yeah, I think I it may seem really far off, like the vision and values, integrity, things like that. But the more iterations and the longer I'm in business for, the more I realize those are probably the most important things. Like
Yeah,
they don't seem tangible, but they have a real impact, right? It's like, do they believe in the vision? Do they get excited about it, right? Um, do they feel that they're part of something bigger than any one individual can be, right?
yeah,
So it requires teamwork. It requires like pouring your heart into it, right? Also, because in our business we've seen so many ups and downs. When things are going up, everyone's happy.
right.
Values don't really come into everyone's happy, right? But when things are not going well, um, everyone's true colors or their values really become very obvious.
Yeah.
Right? And that can hurt, right? Especially for a small team. I mean, even if you lose like one person or two people, it's a big hit. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. When you have a small team, like for instance, you currently right now you have six
yeah,
people plus yourself,
yeah,
so there's a total of seven.
yeah.
You lose one, that's 1/7 of your whole team.
It's
That's
massive.
huge.
It's huge. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Do you currently in your business have a set established your vision for your company?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you call this a vision, but maybe you could tell me if this is a vision or not. But
Okay.
we do believe in a world where everyone has a habit of helping founders or innovators at the bad idea stage. We believe that if everyone could learn this one habit, I do believe all of the current global issues will be resolved overnight, or sort of like, very quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's what we believe in. So our North Star metric for our program is not how many people get funded. That's very important, but it's more about how many people that go through the program and they get to the next level as a founder. They're willing to come back and spend some time sharing what they learned along their journey with people at the bad idea stage, right? That's the North Star. Like, what percentage of people come back?
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, like, part of that process is adhering to, okay, although people and funds, etc., they try to convince us to do an accelerator, we
Mhm.
said no, we want to stay in the pre-accelerator stage, and we have to keep the majority of the people starting at the bad idea stage. Because if they get help at this time and they have a good experience and they level up, find a team, find co-founders, build a real startup, right? And they
Right.
benefit from investors, etc. But that user experience, right? If they have a good time there, then they'll be more motivated, right? They'll be socialized
Yeah.
into want to help people at the bad idea stage,
No,
right? So
love that.
that's all we do. Yeah. So everything revolves around that one purpose.
No, love that. So here at Elite, we view vision as actually a three-part, where you have your purpose, that's your why. So it sounds like that's what you just explained. That's your why. That's why you get out of bed in the morning. That's why you do what you do. Then the next step is values. So establishing core values within your business. That's who you are and how you show up on a daily basis, right? And then step 3 of the vision is establishing a mission. Now your mission, that's the destination. That's where you get together as a team and you say, okay, where are we going to be 3, 4, or 5 years from now? And we're going to go after and we're going to reach that destination. And then your mission goals kind of as a subset of that, where that's the metrics that deliver the results of establishing, hey, without a shadow of a doubt, we know that we've arrived when we get there to our mission. Now that vision, that's paramount in your business, because that's where you get, like what you described, that's where you get that discretionary effort from your employees, where they're willing to work not because they're like, hey, I clocked in at 8, I'm clocking out at 5, but they're tied emotionally to this vision, to this purpose, to these values, to, hey, we're going to go after and do this awesome thing. That's where the sexy comes in, right? It's, hey, we know exactly where we're going. Now we just have to say, okay, what strengths do we have to leverage and what strengths do we need to develop to ensure that we reach there? Because what got us here isn't necessarily going to get us there. So we've got to do some things. So that's kind of like the strategic long-term planning, right? As you're thinking that through. But that only works if you have this clearly identified vision of your purpose, your values, and your mission and your mission goals. So I love your intentionality around, hey, this is this thing, this is our North Star, we're going to go after and do this. But now the next step would be then to get real clear. Okay, now we're going to set a date on it. And the next 3, 4, or 5 years, being very specific, what are we going to go do as a team? And that's how you're going to do that. And then it's incorporating those core values, that purpose, and that mission into all aspects of your business. So as the leader, we have what we call the elite leadership model, where we believe that every leader has 3 jobs: set the vision, build the team, and then deliver results. And that the center of all of that is this concept of care. We have to care about the individual and we have to care about the cause, right? And as long as that's all together, that's your recipe for success.
That's a great way to. I love that framework. Yeah, maybe we can invite you to share that with um, our future entrepreneurs class.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
So I mean, the
we love it.
vision, the values, and the mission. Yeah, I love to dive into that. I mean, I think that's a really valuable framework that you put together. You know, it's always been hard for me to articulate the values as I learn more and more about what I do. My
Mhm.
perception of it changes, right? And maybe my interpretation, or maybe the way I would describe it, the values will change. Maybe it's always the same, except at
Just
the
your
core, maybe
understanding of
it's the same,
it, right?
but like our minds are evolving. So the way we understand it might be, looking at it from a different angle or more deeply or something, whatever, right? Something's changing. But
Right.
yeah, that's, I mean, would love to pick your brain on how to articulate the values, right? And how that translates into like helping the mission out. Like, as you said, like the executional, like having those very clear, time gated goals,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
think that's
So
powerful. Yeah.
so we have a whole program we call it Elite Ignition here at Elite, where we actually take you through very, very closely, one step at a time. First, establishing your purpose, what your why is, then establishing your values. And when we think of values, we think of a we statement plus behaviors. So it's establishing, saying we believe in this, and then defining what that looks like, so that it's there's no room for misinterpretation, so that everybody on the team and your next new hire, when you bring them on board, very clearly they understand, hey, these are our core values. This is who we are and how we show up in every situation in this business. And that does several things, right? That, number one, acts as a very positive, powerful magnet to attract your next possible employee, but it also does the exact opposite. If you turn that magnet around, it's repelling those people that are like, yeah, that's not who I am. I'm not interested.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
Right?
a natural filtering mechanism.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
Yeah,
that
that'll save a lot of time, right? I mean, recruiting is a heavy, like time intensive thing,
oh yeah,
and with these methods, I could see how it becomes very manageable.
yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. I mean, would love
You
to
bet, you bet.
learn
And
more afterwards too. This is I think this is like one of the most overlooked things. But then once you do want to grow, and you we call it the fulcrum. We found that every startup has found a fulcrum if they want to go big time. Um, in the beginning, it's like, make sure you have a startup idea. We call it the fulcrum, right? Make sure you can find your early adopters, and then make sure you can build the product, right? And then
yeah,
make sure there's a revenue model, right? Somehow
yeah,
to
because it has to be
keep the
repeatable and
lights on, right?
sustainable,
And
right?
to fuel your growth, exactly, right? But then, underneath that is people, is like a very cohesive team that's brought together by, as you would put it, like the vision or why, the values and the mission, and then and then uh, creating a team
Yeah,
to make that happen, right?
yeah, go out and execute.
That last part is I think some people naturally are better at it, and for me, I think I'd learn it.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and the thing is that you're really passionate about what you do, Albert. And 9 times out of 10, that's the case with small business owners. They're really passionate about something. And sometimes they're even the expert in that particular field or whatever it is they're doing. But that doesn't mean that they understand how to set up a business and how to run it, right? It just means that they're really good at that one thing. One of my favorite quotes is, "As a leader, you don't have to have all the answers.
mm.
You just need to be willing to accept the right one when you hear it, right?" So it's understanding that, hey, just because I'm the owner doesn't mean that I have to do everything. I can learn from outside resources. I can bring in people that know a part of the business that I don't know, and I can let them do that. Um, it's understanding what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, and realizing that just because it's a weakness doesn't mean that it has to be negative, right? And going through that. So yeah, no, I would absolutely love to. We'll have to connect after this
Yeah. Let's
podcast.
definitely connect. I mean, this is so important
Yeah.
for
Well,
us
Albert.
and for all of the teams that we train.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Well, Albert, it's just been an absolute joy having you on the podcast with us today. I love your intentionality around how focused you are on, hey, I saw this problem, I'm going to go after and I'm going to help it, and your intentionality of, hey, and I'm going to go help these people to a point where their understanding increases so that they're willing to come back and repeat the cycle. I'm not just helping individuals. I'm creating this cycle that's going to change the way that the world exists, basically.
Yeah, I love it. You totally understand why we do what we do,
Yeah,
and
yeah, love it.
I'm excited to say that we're beginning to build technology for this so we can scale it. Because right now, last cohort we admitted around 100 founders.
Mhm.
I mean, we'll probably max out at 200, 300, doing it the way we're doing, right? And which create a small community. It's
Right.
impactful. Some of our companies have ballooned to over $100 million of valuation in under 2 years, right?
That's awesome.
In the Bitcoin space, we're definitely hands down the best globally for bad idea to investment ready in record time, right? There's no contest. But
Yeah,
at the same time, if we really want to create real impact, we realize that we can't just do it 100 or 200 or 300 founders at a time. We have to, and we can't expect people to go through the same journey I went through. It took me, this is 10 and a half years. This
right.
month is like 10 and a half years, right? And it was so much pain. And I would have to say that I got lucky. There's a lot of times where I wanted to close a business, I wanted to do something else, right? But something happened which allowed me to continue on this journey. And because I did enough iterations, I found certain things can be collapsed down to, maybe it's an impossible lift if you do it the first time, but through our methodologies, it becomes very manageable. So you don't
There you
have
go.
to go through 10 years of experience before you can help people at the idea stage. So we're developing technology so we can scale it. So imagine when we can train 1,000 founders every
Yeah.
4 months or 10,000 founders every 4 months. At 1,000, we're creating an ecosystem at a time. At 10,000, we could potentially jumpstart the entire innovation ecosystem of a city, right? If
Yeah.
you multiply this across a few thousand cities across the world, then one day there will be a place where people go to where there's a scientific method to start up in record time. Number two, a bunch of other people that can, like you said, filling your weaknesses, their strengths, um, filling with co-founder matching, right? And number three, abundant resources, capital, know-how, etc. Right? Because
Yeah.
we've created a model where we de-risk things so much, it makes more sense to invest now at an earlier stage,
Yeah.
right? So one day, with our technology and probably some people that try to copy us or have variations of what we do,
Right.
collectively, I believe that one day every single meaningful innovation can come to life.
Love that. Fantastic. Well, Albert, it's been a joy having you on the show today. For those who are listening on, if they wanted to get a hold of you or they wanted to get a hold of Bitcoin Startup Labs and learn more about you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, the best way is probably you go to our website is btcstartuplab.com, and then there's apply to BSL button. There's a bright orange button. You can't miss it. And then you sign up. And if we have the largest and fastest growing group of pre-seed investors for Bitcoin and what I call freedom technologies. So even if you're an investor, you can sign up there and we'll get back to you, right? But more to the point, if you're still a founder or it may be your first time doing a startup and you're at the exploration stage, right? Meaning that you haven't established business entity yet, right? You're experimenting around, maybe talking with some friends or your potential co-founders, whatever it is at the very beginning, and all the other programs won't take you, come to us. There's a good chance we'll take you. Yeah.
Love it.
All right.
Love it. So listen to Albert. Go to
Thank
his
you,
website.
Sean. Wonderful. It's a great thing you're doing, this podcast and the service of helping people, articulate, find their vision, articulate their values, and breaking it up into actionable steps through the mission, and also building a team. This is sorely needed in the innovation ecosystem. So, would love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. For those listening on today's episode, as always, if you heard something today and it inspired you, and you're like, oh yeah, I need to do that, I need to follow through, please be intentional about it. Take some action. I promise you're not going to be underwhelmed or disappointed in the results. Take action. That's what you need to do. And if you heard something today that you're like, hey, I know somebody else that could benefit from this, please share this podcast with them. Let's create as much value with as many people as we can. Well, as always, we're grateful for you continuing to watch the show. Again, thank you so much, Albert, for joining us today. And that concludes another episode of the 7-Figure Journey podcast. Till next time. See you guys.
Thanks again, John.